What if God planned this all along? Like, what if what you're going through right now was planned? What if what you just came out of was planned? What if, just what if it was all planned? Ooh, this is a word. Don't go anywhere, because I'm finna break this all the way down. You see, Exodus chapter 14, verse 18 in the New Living Translation says this: "When my glory is displayed through them, all Egypt will see my glory and know that I am the Lord." I'm going to jump down a little bit to verse 21 through 23, where it says, "Then Moses raised his hand over the sea, and the Lord opened up a path through the water with a strong east wind. The wind blew all night, turning the seabed into dry land. So the people of Israel walked through the middle of the sea on dry ground with walls of water." Imagine that, on each side. "Then the Egyptians, all of Pharaoh's horses, chariots, and charioteers, ceased them into the middle of the sea." I'm going to drop down a little bit more where in verse 30 and 31, where it says, "That is how the Lord rescued Israel from the hand of the Egyptians that day. And the Israelites saw the bodies of the Egyptians washed up on the seashore. When the people of Israel saw the mighty hand of God that had unleashed against the Egyptians, they were filled with awe before him. They put their faith in the Lord and in his servant Moses. This was planned." The first thing that we see whenever we are in the middle of a crossroads, when our enemies are chasing us, when the devil is chasing us, when the enemy wants to pull us back into the bondage, oftentimes the first thing that we see is the disappointment, right? We see the disappointment of why would God allow me to get back in this situation? Why would God allow these thoughts to come back to my mind? Why would God allow me to feel this way again? Why would God allow this person to get back in my life? Why would the devil even tempt me? Like, why would God allow all of these things to happen? And I think it's important to understand that all of this in this particular text and in our lives is planned. God literally, if we look in the text, God literally demonstrates his power to Pharaoh. He's really trying to prove to Pharaoh, basically, that your power is not the power. I am the power. I'm sovereign. I'm power over the power. I am the power when it comes to it. I the endurance. I am the I am. There is no other power except me. And so he's trying to demonstrate to Pharaoh, the very one that's trying to keep them captive, that he has power. I got to say this really quick because I want you to know that sometimes God has to demonstrate his power to your enemies. The people that are trying to keep you captive, God is saying, I got to let me demonstrate my power to them. Let me keep it real, because I need y'all to understand this. Sometimes we don't need to let them have it. Sometimes we don't have to fuss them out. Sometimes we don't need to crash out on them. Sometimes we don't need to show them anything. Sometimes we need God to show his power. God demonstrates his power to Pharaoh. God demonstrates his power. God demonstrates his power. Ooh, let me say this. We are so caught up on getting out of our situation. I talked about this in the second video. Actually, no, I think it was the first video. I talked about not just exiting a situation, but God delivering us from a situation, and how it's one thing for God to just pull us out of it, but it's another thing for God to deliver us from it. I want you to know that in order for deliverance to take place, God has not just you in mind, but he's got your enemy in mind. What I mean by that is God literally has to decimate the enemy, not just so that, you know, for the sake of it, but God has to decimate the enemy so that they don't continue to come after you. It doesn't make sense for you to just come out of your situation and your enemy is still there. It doesn't make sense for them to just cross the Red Sea and their enemy is still there. Because there is a likelihood, there is a chance that enemy can find a way to get to them. So what do they do? What does God do? God has to destroy. God has to disseminate the army of pharaohs to get them out of the hand of Pharaoh. God has to totally destroy the army. How can I say this better? You know how, like, when there's if a fire is in a building and the fire alarm goes off, it signals everybody to exit the building. Now, because you've made it out of the building, you've made it out, right? You've exited. You're no longer in the so-called threat, right? But if there's a fire in the building, it is not enough for you to just exit out of the building. No. We got to put out the threat. We got to put out the fire, because if we don't put out the fire, there's a chance that the fire can spread, which then puts you back in a dangerous situation, because just because you made it outside to the parking lot, if the fire decides to spread, then you're back in danger again. And sometimes, this is God. Sometimes you have to literally let God put the fire out. While you exit the building. Because true deliverance is not just coming out of the building. True deliverance is not just coming out of your situation. True deliverance is not just exiting, but it is God putting out the very thing that's trying to keep you in bondage. Is this good? Is this good? God didn't just want the Israelites out of Egypt. He had to destroy literally what was chasing them. Because deliverance isn't just about your exit. It is literally about decimating what had power over you. I don't know who needs to hear this, but this was planned, y'all. This was planned. This was planned. I need you to know that this was planned. I need you to say that in your storm. This was planned. Why? Why was it planned? Because God wanted the glory. And some of us mistake freedom. This is one of the biggest mistakes we make. We mistake freedom for distance, as if the thing that had you in bondage isn't still alive and close behind you. So because you are a distance away from the thing that had you in bondage, because you're not in close proximity to it, you assume that you've been delivered. You assume that you're free. In actuality, you're just on the run. You're just on the run. You're just out. You're just surviving. You're not delivered. And the harsh reality of it is, as I close out, is that you're one trip away from being in bondage. You're one text message away from being in bondage. One picture on Instagram away from being back in bondage. So how do we respond? How do we break free? I told you in the last video, don't panic. Don't panic. But there's something unique that the Israelites do in Exodus chapter 14, verse 31 and verse 15. And I'm not going to read it, but you can read it on your own time. But they praise. And I know they waited until they came out to praise, but even while you're in it, celebrate the victory. Even while you're in it, tell God thank you. Praise God for what God has done. I gave you a disclaimer in the first video. And I want to give you a disclaimer as I close out this one. And the disclaimer is that after this situation, after this, don't forget this. In other words, don't get cute and forget. You know, we get amnesia when we come out of something, as if God didn't bring us out. We forget that it was God that brought us out. I am telling you, don't get amnesia. Don't get cute and forget. Remember this. Because your remembering this may be the very thing that's going to help somebody else get out of their situation. Your remembering this is going to help you to say, oh God, you brought me out of this. You can bring me out of the next thing. Your remembering this is literally a sign. It's a testament. It's a testimony of God's goodness of bringing you out of it. After this, respond with praise. After this, serve him. After this, talk about Jesus. After this, walk like you've been delivered. I can't stand a person that come out of a situation and want sympathy for what they went through in their last season. You came out of it. Why are you still walking around with your head held down? Why are you still looking like you in bondage? Why are you still looking like you still chained? Now you done sung Tasha Cobb's Break Every Chain, and you still look like you, and God done brought you out of it. Walk like you've been delivered. Don't come out of Egypt like you barely survived, but cross over with the testament, being evidence of the depiction of God's goodness. That literally God still makes paths where there is no path. Be the evidence. Be the evidence that he's a way maker. Look, if this message has blessed your life, subscribe to my channel, as I'm going to continue to upload videos as much as possible. Go back and watch some of the previous ones. What a true blessing they have been, even in my life, as I go back and watch what God has spoken. And so, be sure to go and subscribe. I love each and every one of you with the love of God, and ain't nothing you can do about it.